question in our hearts. Sometimes we're not maybe even aware of these questions. And we have sometimes have someone ask those questions to get us to think.
In nas mora včasih nekdo vprašati ta vprašanja, da začnemo mi razmišljati.
I can remember starting these questions in my heart when I was maybe 3 years old. It's one of the very first memories I ever had.
Spomnim se, da sem se v teh vprašanjih spraševal že, ko sem bil star 3 leta in to so ena mojih prvih spominov, ki jih imam.
And it was many, many years later before I found the answers to those questions.
In mnogo let potem sem našel odgovor na ta vprašanja.
But as I travel around the world over the last many years, I find that all people are created the same.
In ko sem veliko potoval po svetu, sem ugotovil, da smo vsi ljudje ustvarjeni po istem sistemu.
It's just that we may have been perhaps taught differently.
Edina razlika je v tem, da so nas učili različnih stvari.
And in some of the world systems around the world, in fact, many have been brainwashed to think a certain way.
In v mnogih sistemih širom sveta so mnogi bili deležni tako imenovanega pranja možganov.
Let's just take a look at a few of the big world views of the last 100 years.
Da si pogledamo nekaj teh glavnih svetonazorov zadnjega stoletja.
The entire world went to war over these ideologies.
Cel svet je šel v vojno za voljo teh ideologij.
In World War II, the Nazis and the fascists, the Italians, rose up.
V drugi svetovni vojni se je dvignil nacizem v Italiji in v Nemčiji.
It affected all of Europe and in fact the world.
In to je imelo učinek na celotno Evropo in tudi na celoten svet.
After the war then, in all of Russia, came Marxism and Stalinism, communism.
Po vojni se je skozi celotno Rusijo razširil stalinizem in marksizem.
All of China became communist.
Celotna Kitajska je postala komunistična.
And in fact, Yugoslavia came under a communistic worldview.
In tudi Jugoslavija je zapadla pod ta komunistični svetonazor.
The basic philosophy was, there is no God.
In osnovna filozofija je bila ta, da Boga ni.
The state will take care of us.
Država bo poskrbela za nas.
And it was a worldview.
In takšen nazor je pač bil.
It answered some of the basic, well actually it never really answered any of the basic questions of life.
In dejansko ta pogled ni odgovoril na nobeno od teh osnovnih vprašanj.
But it was something that was taught in our schools and through our media and through every other television.
Je pa bilo nekaj, kar se je poučevalo v medijih in v šolah in povsod.
And though communism has fallen in Yugoslavia and in Europe,
in čeprav je komunizem v Jugoslaviji in v Evropi padal,
what has followed and taken its place is today what's called humanism.
Njegovo mesto, po padcu komunizma je njegovo mesto zavzel humanizem.
And its basic philosophy is the same.
In osnovna filozofija je ista.
It is basically saying that there is no God. We've taken God and thrown him out.
V osnovi komunizem govori, Boga ni, smo ga enostavno vrgli čez okno.
Humanism teaches that man is basically God and we don't need a creator God.
Komunizem v bistvu uči, da je človek Bog in da ne rabimo Boga stvarnika.
Now, we learn as we study history and we look back at these great battles of World War II and the rise of Nazism.
In če proučujemo zgodovino in gledamo na te velike bitke druge svetovne vojne in na to, kako se je povzpel nacizem.
Hitler's philosophy of what later was given the name propaganda.
Je Hitlerjeva filozofija, ki so jo kasneje poimenovali propaganda.
In fact, he wrote in his book when he was in prison in the 1930s, 20s, I mean.
Ko je bil v 20 letih prejšnjega stoletja v zaporu, dejansko to zapisal v svojo knjigo.
And he wrote his philosophy.
Je zapisal v knjigo svojo filozofijo.
He says, a big lie is easier to believe than a little lie.
Rekel je, da je veliki lažje verjeti kot majhni.
And if you tell a lie big enough, long enough, people will begin to believe it.
In če je dovolj glasno ponavljaš in dovolj pogosto, jo bodo ljudje začeli verjeti.
I was living in Washington, my family and I lived in Washington, D.C. the last 4 years before we moved here.
Zadnje 4 leta, ko smo živeli v Ameriki, preden smo se preselili sem, smo z družino živeli v Washington, D.C., torej v mestu Washington.
And one of the biggest Holocaust museums in the world is in Washington, D.C.
In tam je eden največjih muzejev, ki je posvečen holokaustu.
They have an entire floor dedicated and devoted to showing you what the propaganda machine of Germany, how it worked.
Celo nadstropje je posvečeno temu, da razloži, kako je propagandni stroj takratne Nemčije deloval.
Hitler's philosophy was, if we can gain control over the thinking of a generation,
Filozofija je bila, da če lahko začnejo posedovati mišljenje ljudi,
if we can control the media, control the schools,
če lahko kontroliramo medije, če lahko kontroliramo šole,
we will ultimately control the way people think,
bomo začeli kontrolirati s tem tudi način, kako ljudje
and
razmišljajo.
we will control their lives.
In s tem bomo nadzorovali njihova življenja.
And we saw how close Hitler came to realizing his vision.
In dejansko smo videli, kako blizu je Hitler bil tega, da bi dosegel svojo vizijo.
Many educated person has studied World War II and said, how could highly intelligent people, like the German people, do the things that were done?
In mnogi ljudje so proučevali zgodovino in se spraševali, kako so lahko izobraženi ljudje, torej Nemci tistega časa, delali stvari, ki so jih počeli.
Well, we can't just stop with Germany.
Ampak ne rabimo se staviti samo pri Nemčiji.
How did Stalin do things that he went on to do after the war?
Kako je Stalin lahko počel stvari, ki jih je delal po vojni?
It is estimated that Stalin murdered between 20 and 32 million Russians in the war and the years after the war.
Ocenjuje se, da je Stalin med vojno in v letih po vojni umoril od 20 pa do 32 milijonov Rusov.
They don't know for sure.
Niso prepričani.
This is Stalin murdering his own people.
Stalin je v bistvu umoril svoje lastno ljudstvo.
In China, Mao came to power after the war.
Na Kitajskem se je povzpel Mao.
And they estimate that he murdered between 60 to 70 million Chinese murdered under Mao. 60 to 70 million.
Ocenjuje se, da je Mao pobil med 60 in 70 milijonov svojih ljudi.
Half by murder, outright murder,
Polovica jih je enostavno bila umorjenih,
and the other half by intentional starvation.
druga polovica pa tako, da so jih načrtno izstradali.
How can these monstrous things take place amongst educated people?
Kako so se lahko ta grozodejstva zgodila med izobraženimi ljudmi?
That is precisely the point of my discussion here this morning.
In to je bistvo tega mojega predavanja danes zjutraj.
It's propaganda.
Je propaganda.
It's the ability to literally brainwash an entire generation.
To je dejansko sposobnost, da spereš možgane celotnih generacij.
And when we take God out of our worldview, out of our thinking, and remove God, there is no evil that man cannot do and accomplish.
Ko iz svojega nazora, iz svojega prepričanja vzamemo Boga in ga odstranimo, da ni zlata, da človek ni sposoben narediti.
Now this is nothing new.
In to je nič novega.
Let's look at the very first chapter of the book of Romans as Paul addresses this topic.
Če pogledamo prvo poglavje pisma Rimljanom, ko Pavel govori o tem,
If you would read verse 16 through 22.
in imamo v Rimljanom,
16:22.
torej 16:22. Ne sramujem se evangelija, saj je vendar Božja moč v rešitev vsakomur, ki veruje, najprej Judu in potem Grku. V njem se namreč razodeva Božja pravičnost, iz vere v vero, kakor je zapisano, pravični bo živel iz vere. Božja jeza se namreč razodeva iz nebes nad vsakršno brezbožnostjo in krivičnostjo ljudi, ki svojo krivičnostjo dušijo resnico. Saj jim je to, kar je mogoče spoznati o Bogu, očitno. Sam Bog jim je namreč to razodev, kajti od stvarjenja sveta naprej je mogoče to, kar je v njem nevidno z umom zreti po ustvarjenih bitij, njegovo večno mogočnost in božanskost. Zato so ti ljudje neopravičljivi. Čeprav so namreč Boga spoznali, da niso kot Boga slavili ali se mu zahvaljevali, namreč so postali v svojih mislih prazni in nespametno srce jim je otemnelo. Domišljali so si, da so modri, pa so ponoreli.
Ja, točno to so ponoreli. Če vzamemo Boga, if we take God out of our thinking, out of our belief,
Torej, če iz svojih prepričanj odstranimo Boga,
the only thing that follows after that is insanity.
dejansko edina stvar, ki temu sledi, je potem zmešanost, norost.
Paul goes on to say, he says that everyone knows there's a creator God because God has revealed himself in his creation.
Pavel je rekel, da sleheni človek ve, da Bog obstaja, da se je Bog razodel v svojem stvarstvu.
Paul says it's impossible for a reasonable, logical thinking person to not look at creation and not see the Creator. It's impossible.
Pavel je rekel, da je nemogoče za logično razmišljajočega človeka, da bi se ozrl po stvarstvu in ne bi videl stvarnika.
But it is possible for someone to believe a lie.
Je pa možno, da človek verjame laži.
It is possible for someone to be affected by propaganda long enough.
Lahko se zgodi, da ima na nekoga velik učinek propaganda.
And Paul goes on then to explain to the Romans what happens to the society when God is not worshipped.
In Pavel potem razloži, kaj se zgodi z družbo, če le ta ne slavi Boga.
And you'll read through there, you'll see there is no limits to the evil that will follow.
In potem, če berete naprej, boste videli, da enostavno ni omejitve zlu, ki ga je ta družba sposobna.
We are in an interesting place because we now can look back over the last 75 years of history.
Mi se nahajamo na zanimivi točki v zgodovini, kjer se lahko ozremo na 75 let nazaj.
We can look back now and look at what happens to the world when we replace God with atheism.
In smo dejansko priča temu, kaj se zgodi, če se Boga odstrani in se ga nadomesti z ateizmom.
Look at what happened in communist Russia. Look what's happened in communist China.
Poglejte, kaj se je zgodilo v komunistični Rusiji, v komunistični Kitajski.
Tens of millions of people butchered and killed.
Desetine milijonov ljudi so bile umorjene.
And Hitler's propaganda films, he showed pictures that he showed in the movies and on television of rats running down the sewers of big cities.
Hitler je v kinu pri filmih kazal slike podgan, ki pač gomazijo po greznici, no?
And he said, this is nothing more than what the Jews are. Jews are nothing more than just rats.
In rekel, to so dejansko ljudje niso več vredni kot podgane.
Right? Should we wipe out rats from our systems, from our sewers and cities?
In rekel, a naj odstranimo podgane iz svoje kanalizacije.
Then why not the Jews too?
Zakaj naj potem odstrani še Judov?
A lie so big that you can't imagine that an intelligent person would believe it.
Tako gromozanska laž, da enostavno ne moreš verjeti, da bo inteligentna oseba sprejela.
Yet multitudes of the German and Italian people believed, and much Europe.
Pa vendar so tej laži verjeli številni Nemci, Italijani in velik del Evrope.
Today we have atheistic humanism being taught in the schools and universities of Europe and America.
Danes pa se po Evropi in Ameriki uči ateistični humanizem.
It is the same philosophy, it just has a different face, a different look.
Je ista filozofija, ima samo malce drugačen izgled, malce drugačen obraz.
And our children, from the time they enter the school systems controlled by the state,
in naši otroci, trenutka, ko vstopijo v šolo, ki jo financira država,
they are taught there is no God.
So izpostavljeni učenju, češ da Boga ni.
Right? And they are fed this lie, they are taught this lie long enough so that eventually an increasing number begin to believe.
In to laž se jih uči zelo dolgo in na koncu mnogi to laž tudi sprejmejo.
And we need to take a look at exactly what is it that they believe.
In zato si moramo ogledati, kaj je tisto, kar verjamemo.
And what is it that we believe?
In kaj je tisto, kar mi verjamemo.
If we believe in Jesus Christ, if we believe in the Bible.
Če verjamemo v Jezusa Kristusa in v Biblijo.
See, Paul says, I'm not ashamed of the gospel.
Pavel pravi, jaz se ne sramujem evangelija.
I think many of us are a little bit ashamed of the gospel.
Mislim pa, da mnogi kristijani da pa se malce sramujejo evangelija.
We're afraid. What does science say?
Nas imamo strah, kaj pa znanost pravi?
What's the state say? The university say?
Kaj pa država pravi? Kaj pravi univerza?
Well, what is it that they believe?
Ja, kaj če oni verjamemo?
Most atheists have no idea what they believe.
In rad vam povedal, da večina ateistov sploh ne ve, kaj verjame.
Because they've never been asked these four basic questions.
Ker se nikoli niso vprašali teh štirih osnovnih temeljnih vprašanj.
Let me ask them with you now very quickly and then we'll go through them.
Naj zastavim ta štiri vprašanja zdaj z vami in potem bomo šli skozi njih.
Number one, where we come from?
Torej številka ena, od kod smo prišli?
This speaks about origins.
In to govori o našem izvoru.
Number two, why are we here?
Številka dve, zakaj smo tukaj?
Speaks of purpose.
Govori o namenu.
Do we have purpose or do we not have purpose?
Ali imamo namen ali ga nimamo?
Number three, where are we going?
Številka tri, kam gremo?
That speaks about destiny.
In to govori o usodi.
And then in light of those first three questions is question number four, now how should we live?
In skozi prizmo tistih prvih treh vprašanj prijemo do četrtega, kako naj živimo.
Now, I just want to contrast a humanistic worldview and a biblical worldview so you can see the comparison of the two.
Zdaj bi rad primerjal humanističen pogled na svet in krščanski.
And I think at the end of this next few minutes, you will understand why Paul said, I am not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Po nekaj minutah verjamem, da boste videli, zakaj je Pavel rekel, da se ne sramuje evangelija.
Okay, well, number one, where did we come from?
Številka 1. Odkot prihajamo?
Just a few basic things. Okay? We believe in it. If you believe in the Bible, you believe in the Creator God.
Biblijo verjame, da je Boga stvarnika.
If you don't believe in that, now atheists have, in the last 60 years have been forced to believe in what they did not want to believe.
Če pa ne verjameš v Boga, so bili dejansko ateisti na nek način prisiljeni, da verjamejo v nekaj, kar prej niso verjeli.
They were forced in the 1930s to believe that there was a beginning.
Leta v 30 letih prejšnjega stoletja so bili prisiljeni v to, da so začeli verjeti, da je bil začetek.
The astronomer Hubble, whose name is the Hubble telescope that we have in orbit,
Torej Hubble, po njem je tudi imenovan ta teleskop, ki ga imamo v vesolju.
in the 1930s he began studying the universe and saw that it was expanding away at a constant rate in all directions.
V 30 letih prejšnjega stoletja je proučeval vesolje in je videl, da se vesolje širi v vse smeri.
When you do the mathematics,
In če pač malo izračunaš,
you know that if you reverse that, there must have been an origin or a beginning.
in če zadeve obrneš, potem moraš enostavno verjeti, da je nekoč bil začetek.
So now an atheist has to believe it was a beginning.
In zdaj ateist mora verjeti, da je bil začetek.
And they call it now the Big Bang.
In to zdaj imenujejo Big Bang,
Ne?
veliki pok.
Hundreds of billions of billions of billions of galaxies all came into existence in a big explosion.
Torej, milijarde in milijarde galaksij so nastale po tistem, ko je nastala eksplozija.
Ne? But where did it come from? Where did all the energy come from? All the matter come from?
Ampak odkot je prišla vsa materija, odkot je prišla vsa energija?
They don't know.
Tega pa ne vejo.
They can't answer that question.
Tega odgovora nima.
One of the most basic questions of life. Where did I come from? And an atheist cannot give you an answer. Not a logical, not a scientific answer.
Najbolj osnovno vprašanje, ki se ga lahko postavimo, odkot sem prišel, in ateisti nimajo odgovora.
Number two, we believe in a divine origin.
Številka 2, mi verjamemo v Božji izvor.
We believe that God has placed eternal laws that govern the universe into motion.
Verjamemo, da je Bog utemeljil večne zakone, ki vladajo v vesolju.
Laws of physics, laws of mathematics,
Zakone fizike in matematike,
laws of biology,
zakone biologije,
laws that are dependable,
zakone, na katere se lahko zanesemo,
laws that we can study,
zakone, ki jih lahko proučujemo,
laws that become the very basis of all scientific knowledge and pursuit.
zakone, ki so dejansko osnova za vso znanstveno delovanje.
What's an atheist believe?
Kaj pa ateisti verjamejo?
They believe in randomness.
Verjamejo v naključje.
Nature has no intelligence, there's no order, it's just randomness. There's no God.
Torej, narava nima nobene inteligence, vse je zgolj stvar naključja.
And if there's not a divine designer, the divine origin, then there must only be randomness.
In če ni nadnaravnega stvarnika, potem enostavno mora biti vse zgolj posledica naključij.
Wow! Wow! Kaj pa tretje? We believe in intelligent design.
Mi verjamemo v inteligentno stvaritev oziroma dizajn.
An atheist believes in unintelligent design.
Ateisti pa verjamejo v neinteligentno stvaritev.
That all of the incredible complexity of the world around us came to pass through randomness and chance without any intelligent design.
Torej, ateisti verjamejo, da vsa kompleksnost, ki smo jo priča okoli sebe, da je nastala zgolj skozi naključja.
Wow, that's not science.
To ni znanost.
And I don't know if that's really even halfway intelligent.
In dejansko ne vem, če je to sploh inteligentno.
Everything around us, do we see intelligent design or do we see unintelligent design?
Ko se ozremo na okolje, ali vidimo nekaj, kar je posledica inteligentnega dizajna, ali nekaj, kar je posledica zgolj naključij, neinteligentnega.
Every day I'm in my garden, in my yard, cutting, and I'm looking at fruit trees and strawberry trees and bees buzzing around, pollinating flowers.
Torej, ko vsak dan v vrtu obrezujem drevesa ali travo in opazujem čebele, kako letajo.
Yeah? And I'm just amazed at the complexity of of the universe.
In sem v bistvu zaprepaden nad kompleksnostjo vesolja.
My background is in aeronautical engineering. I was 32 years in the Air Force.
Torej, jaz sem bil letalski inženir, bil sem 32 let pri ameriškem letalstvu.
And I know a little bit about the laws of aerodynamics.
Zato nekaj malega vem o zakonih aerodinamike.
And I can tell you that we have not created our finest, most sophisticated aircraft.
In lahko povem, da nismo ustvarili najbolj sofisticiranega letala.
Cannot even closely compare to the aerodynamic brilliance of a flight.
Aha, se pravim. Torej, najboljše, najkompleksnejše letalo, ki smo ga ustvarili, se ne more primerjati s kompleksnostjo muhe.
You ever look at a fly? Or any bird?
Če pogledate muho ali ptico,
You have, most people, since you're not an aeronautical engineer, you don't understand the engineering that's involved in what you're looking at.
Torej, če nisi letalski inženir, se ne zavedaš vsega inženirskega znanja, ki je vpleteno v to.
Yeah? For a fly to be able to fly like this.
Torej, muha lahko tako leti in če gre na
it already senses and has intense sensory capability, intelligence to sense and take off and fly, and you can't catch a fly.
In dejansko muha tako leta in ima cel kup čutil, da jo je zelo težko ujeti.
Man can't create something like that.
In človek ne more ničesar takega ustvariti.
Last month we were coming back from America.
Prejšnji mesec sva se vrnila iz Amerike.
And we were leaving we left the terminal in Ramstein, Germany, and we were going to fly to Italy.
In zapustila sva terminal v Nemčiji, Ramstein, in sva letela v Italijo.
And we came to the end of the runway, and we stopped, and we sat there for 30 minutes.
In prišli smo na konec piste in potem smo tam čakali 30 minut.
And normally, after a few minutes, the pilot gets on the thing and tells you what's happening, or why there's a delay.
In ponavadi po nekaj minutah zamude se javi pilot in pove, kaj je razlog za zamudo.
And I was beginning to get a little concerned after 30 minutes that there was a problem, we were going to have to go back.
In po 30 minutah sem postal malce zaskrbljen, da je neka težava in da bomo morali iti nazaj.
And finally, the pilot gets on the intercom and he says, I just received a slight change to our flight path to Italy.
In pilot je povedal, da je dobil še zadnja navodila za malce spremenjen let proti Italiji.
And I've been reprogramming the computer for the last 30 minutes.
In je zadnjih 30 minut je moral reprogramirati računalnik.
About 2 weeks later, my family and I were watching one of the animal programs on television, the Animal Kingdom.
Nekaj tednov potem smo pa z družino gledali en program na televiziji o živalih.
And they were studying how the bird migrations fly. From the birds come from the north in Canada, and they fly all the way down to the warmer Central America in the winter, and then they fly back again in the summer.
In na tem programu so v bistvu predstavili, kako migrirajo ptice iz Kanade do toplejše kraje in kako se potem vračajo nazaj.
And they showed these exact navigational paths that they follow.
In so kazali te navigacijske poti, ki jim sledijo.
And I thought to myself, wow.
In sem si mislil, wow.
It took a highly intelligent pilot
Potreben je bil zelo inteligenten pilot.
30 minutes to program an onboard computer
da je programiral računalnik, ki je na letalu,
so we can go 45 minutes from Germany to Italy.
Da smo lahko 45 minut leteli iz Nemčije v Italijo.
Yet these birds,
na drugi strani te ptice,
millions of them,
milijoni njih,
generation after generation,
generacija za generacijo,
are born,
se rodijo,
and they follow exact predetermined flight paths.
In sledijo točno isti določeni poti.
They know exactly where to go.
In točno vejo, kam morajo iti.
They know exactly where they're going to stop for a pauza.
Vejo točno, kje bodo imeli odmor.
And they travel thousands of kilometers.
In potujejo na tisoče kilometrov.
And they do it without a mistake.
In naredijo to brez napaka.
I ask you, if you're a rational, scientific person, is that intelligence or non-intelligence?
In zdaj, če vas sprašujem, če ste racionalna oseba, kaj je zdaj to, inteligenca ali ne inteligenca?
And we watched this program, we watched, they were talking about fish and salmon and bears and just all of God's creation.
In to dajo in so govorili o celotnem Božjem stvarstvu, o lososu, pa o medvedih in to.
Right? And I'm telling you, what Paul says, no one could look at God's creation and not see God.
In tako kot Pavel pravi, nihče ne more gledati Božjega stvarstva in reči, Boga ni.
Amen? I'm not ashamed of the gospel in Christ because it's the only thing that makes sense.
Ni me sram Božjega evangelija, ker je edina stvar, ki je smiselna.
This does not make sense to me.
To na desni strani, naturalistični pristop, za mene nima nobenega smisla.
As I study, as I live life, as I look and examine everything around me, this over here doesn't make no sense to me.
Torej, ko živim življenje in opazujem okolico in jo proučujem, to na desni strani enostavno nima nobenega smisla.
Number 4.
Številka 4.
We believe, if you believe the Bible, that man is created in God's image and has value.
Številka 4. Torej, mi verjamemo, da ima človek vrednote.
Right? We have value.
Imamo vrednote.
Because we were created in God's image.
Ker smo bili stvarjeni po Božji podobi.
If there is a God,
če je Bog,
then we have value.
Potem imamo vrednote.
If there is not a God,
če pa ni Boga,
then you and I have no value.
Potem ti in jaz nimamo nobenih vrednot.
Kill the Jews like rats.
Pobij Jude kot podgane.
Murder 20-30 million Russians that don't want to, that be out of Stalin's paranoia and fear.
Pobij 20-30 milijonov Judov čisti iz paranoje.
Yeah? Murder millions of Chinese. Why not?
Pobij milijone Kitajcev, zakaj ne?
Right? Why not?
Zakaj ne?
Because if there's no God, then why not?
Če ni Boga, zakaj
You
ne?
see, if there's no God, none of us can look at Hitler and Stalin and Mao and said that they've done anything wrong.
Če ni Boga, potem nihče od nas ne more pogledati na Hitlerja, Stalina ali Mao in reči, da so naredili nekaj narobe.
Right? So they're consistent with their worldview.
Oni so bili pač konsistentni s svojim pogledom na svet.
There's no God.
Ni Boga.
Man has no value.
Človek nima nobene
Man is simply no more than an animal.
Človek ni nič drugega kot žival.
Right? It is the survival of the fittest.
In dejansko gre za preživetje močnejšega.
That's what we're taught. That's what our children are being taught in schools today.
In to se uči naše otroke danes v šoli.
Right? It's the unintelligent law of nature, right? The survival of the fittest.
Neinteligentni zakon narave, kjer preživi najmočnejši.
Right? And if the Germans are superior, why not? Why not should they prevail over other inferior nationalities?
Če so Nemci resnično nadrasa, zakaj ne bi zavladali vsem ostalemu svetu, ki je inferioren?
Right? Again, we have the last 75 years of history on a global scale to see what this kind of thinking will produce.
In torej imamo zadnjih 75 let zgodovine, dejansko, če pogledamo čisto globalno, lahko vidimo, kaj producira takšen način razmišljanja.
So, where do we come from? Basic question in life.
Torej, odkot prihajamo? Osnovno vprašanje v našem življenju.
Right? And you need to know exactly what you believe.
In morate vedeti točno, kaj verjamete.
I believe in God.
Jaz verjamem v Boga.
I believe in His Word.
Verjamem v njegovo besedo.
I believe in the Creator God, who is the author of everything we see around us.
Verjamem v Boga stvarnika, ki je ustvaril vse, kar je okoli nas.
Now, second important question is, why are we here?
Drugo pomembno vprašanje pa je, zakaj smo tu.
I believe, as do many others,
Jaz verjamem, tako kot mnogi ostali,
that God has a plan for our life.
da ima Bog načrt za naše življenje.
So the Bible teaches.
To uči Biblija.
And the Lord declares, He says, I have a purpose and a plan for you.
In tudi Bog pravi, da ima načrt in namen za
to prosper you, to bless you.
Da te prosperiram, da te blagoslovim.
You are on the earth for a reason and for a purpose.
Na zemlji si z namenom.
Right? What about someone who doesn't believe in God?
Skaj nekdo, ki ne verjame v Boga?
Well, then there is no divine plan because there is nothing divine.
Potem ni nobenega nadnaravnega načrta, ker ničesar nadnaravnega sploh ni.
So there's basically nothing.
Torej, dejansko
no purpose.
Ni nobenega načrta.
An unbeliever, an atheist lives life without any purpose at all.
Torej, ateist živi življenje brez kakršnegakoli resničnega namena.
And that's a very sad way to live.
In to je že zelo žalosten način eksistence.
You know what the number one killer of our young people in Europe and America, the number one killer of our young people is today?
Veste, kaj je glavni volilec mladih v Ameriki in Evropi danes?
It's not car accidents.
Niso prometne nesreče.
It's not drugs.
In niso droge.
You know what it is?
Veste, kaj je?
Suicide.
Umori. Samomori.
More young people are dying today, self-inflicted, killing themselves than for any other reason.
Torej, več mladih stori samomor in na ta način izgubi življenje kot kakorkoli drugače. Torej, prometne nesreče in vse vzame manj mladih življenj kot samomor.
Because they're living without hope.
Zato, ker živijo brez upanja.
We can live a few weeks without food.
Nekaj tednov lahko živimo brez hrane.
We can live a few days without water.
Nekaj dni celo brez vode.
And we can't live one few hours without hope.
Ampak brez upanja pa ne moremo živeti.
And hundreds of thousands of young people around the world are living without purpose and without hope.
In 100.000 mladih živi brez namena in brez upanja.
Victims of the propaganda of the state and the educational system controlled by the state.
In so žrtve propagande, ki jo spodbuja država.
They're told there is no purpose.
Govori jim, da ni namena.
Because there's no God.
Ker ni Boga.
Now how do you live without purpose?
In kako lahko živiš brez namena?
You live purposeless.
Živiš brez namensko.
No? And that is not a very good place to live.
In to ni način, na katerega bi ljudje želeli živeti.
If you believe in the Bible, if you believe in God, you believe in meaning.
Če verjamete v Biblijo in v Boga, potem verjamete v to, da obstaja nek smisel.
Without God, there is meaningless.
Brez Boga obstaja zgolj nesmisel.
Why study? Why look for the questions? Because there is no, why look for the answers to the questions? Because there is no answers.
Zakaj bi iskal odgovore na vprašanja, če odgovorov sploh ni?
If there's a God, then there's answers.
Če je Bog, potem so
We
odgovori.
might have to seek for the answers.
In moramo iskati te odgovore.
Keep knocking,
Neprestano trkamo,
keep asking,
neprestano
keep
sprašujemo
seeking,
in iščemo,
but we will find answers.
ampak bomo našli odgovore.
But without God, there is no answers.
Ampak brez Boga odgovorov ni.
There's nothing but emptiness and meaningless.
Obstaja samo praznina in nesmisel.
And that's what a growing number of people, that is the religion of Europe and America today.
In to je v bistvu religija številnih ljudi v Evropi in Ameriki danes.
And it's quite amazing when you take a look at what it is that we're talking about.
In je v bistvu kar zanimivo, o čem se pogovarjamo.
Number 3, we believe in God, we believe in stewardship.
In če verjamemo v Boga, verjamemo v upravljanje.
God has given us talents, He's given us time, He's given us resources.
Bog nam je dal talente in čas in vire.
And He's requiring us to steward that which He's given us in His name.
In želi, da zdaj s tem upravljamo v njegovem imenu.
But without God, there is no stewardship, there is no meaning or purpose at all.
Ampak brez Boga pa nima mega smisla, ni želje po upravljanju.
So the first question is, where did I come from?
In prvo vprašanje je torej, odkod sem prišel?
A very important question.
Zelo pomembno vprašanje.
The second question is, why are we here?
Drugo pomembno vprašanje pa je, zakaj smo tukaj?
The third question, very important question, and that is, where are we going?
Tretje vprašanje, kam gremo?
If we believe in God,
Če verjamemo v Boga,
we believe in everlasting life.
verjamemo v večno življenje.
God is a spirit.
Bog je duh
He is eternal.
in je večen.
And we are created in His image.
In mi smo ustvarjeni po njegovi podobi.
That means we also are eternal. Our spirit is eternal. Not our body, our spirit is eternal.
In to pomeni, da smo tudi mi večni, ne naše telo, ampak naš duh.
And Jesus says, if you believe unto me, you will not die. You shall live eternally.
In Jezus je rekel, če verjamete vame, ne boste umrli, ampak boste živeli večno.
Yeah, we're going to need to get a new body, for sure.
Ja, seveda bomo rabili novo telo.
But you, the real you,
Ampak ti, resničen ti,
is not flesh.
pa nisi meso,
It's spirit.
ampak si duh
And you will live eternal. You are eternal.
in si večen.
You will live forever.
Živel boš večno.
That's what you believe if you believe in God.
In temu verjamemo, če verjamemo v Boga.
If you don't believe in God, then what do you believe? Where are you going?
Če ne verjamemo v Boga, kaj verjamemo? Kam gremo?
Very simple.
Preprosto.
Nowhere.
Nikamo.
Because when I die, there's nothing.
Kaj ko umrem, ni ničesar.
A big beach.
Velik nič.
Right? What a vision.
Wow, kakva vizija.
Man. I'm going to live my life, I'm going to work, I'm going to raise children, have a wife, and labor and work, and where am I going? Nowhere.
Torej, delal bom, se učil, bom imel družino, otroke, delal bom in kam grem? Nikam.
I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Christ.
Ne sramujem se evangelija.
I know where I came from.
Vem, odkot sem prišel.
I know why I'm here,
Vem, zakaj sem tu.
and I know where I'm going.
In vem, kam grem.
That is not a bad way to live.
In to ni slab način, da se živi.
I can't imagine living as an atheist.
Ne znam si predstavljati, da bi živel kot ateist.
That is to me beyond imaginable.
Zame je to nekaj, kar si sploh ne morem zamisliti.
I was not always a believer, and I was not raised in a Christian home.
Nisem bil vedno veren in nisem zrasel v krščanskem domu.
I didn't always know God as I know him today.
Nisem vedno poznal Boga tako, kot ga poznam zdaj.
Not until I was 19 years old.
Nisem ga poznal vse dokler nisem bil star 19 let.
Ever since I was 3 years old,
Vse od 3. leta starosti.
I never once did I believe that there was not a God.
Ampak nikoli pa nisem verjel, da Boga ni.
I knew there was a God, I just didn't know what or who or where or when or...
Vedel sem, da Bog je, nisem samo vedel, kdo je.
That didn't happen until I was 19.
In šele v 19 sem bil dobro.
And then when I began to read the scriptures, the Holy Spirit began to open my heart and open my mind and began to reveal who God is.
In ko sem začel potem pri 19 brati Biblijo, mi je Sveti Duh odprl besedo in sem začel razumeti in sem bil razgledal.
And now I see my Creator God in everything I look at, every blade of grass, every flower that blooms.
In zdaj svojega Boga stvarnika vidim v slehernem listu trave, v sleherni cvetlici, ki na travniku.
I've had now enough training, enough biology, enough science, enough physics, and the basic sciences.
Torej, bil sem izobražen v celem kupu naravoslovnih znanosti, biologiji, fiziki in tako naprej.
To know and to see the complexity and the amazing design of the Creator God.
Da lahko vidim kompleksnost in neverjetni dizajn Boga stvarnika.
It's like Paul says, it's impossible not to see the Creator God in His creation.
In kot Pavel pravi, nemogoče je, da ne bi videli Boga v stvarstvu.
I believe that there is a divine plan and eternal life for the believer.
Verjamem, da je Božji načrt in večno življenje.
I believe that where are we going? There is going to be a day of accountability.
In verjamem, da tja, kamor gremo, bo tudi dan, ko bomo podali odgovore.
Paul goes on to say to the Romans, he says, "Do you not realize that everyone will stand one day before the judgment seat of Christ?"
In Pavel rekel, se zavedate tega, da bomo nekoč vsi stali pred sodnim prestolom Jezusa Kristusa.
Everyone will give account of themselves.
Slehernik bo podal odgovor
The
za
believer
vernik
and the unbeliever.
in tudi nevernik.
The believer are rewarded with unimaginable things that God has stored up for those that love Him.
In vernik bo v bistvu dal odgovor za nagrade, bo prejel nagrade, ki so za nas, enostavno si jih ne moremo predstavljati in jih ima Bog pripravljene za nas.
I promise you, the unbeliever will also stand before God.
Ampak nevernik bo tudi stal pred Bogom.
Imagine that day.
In predstavljate si ta dan.
When they stand before the one who they said all their life doesn't exist.
Predstavljate si, ko bodo stali pred tistim, za katerega so vse življenje govorili, da ne obstaja.
And they look upon the one whose nail-scarred hands paid the ultimate price.
In ko bodo videli tistega, čigar žebri prebodene roke so plačali ceno.
And who is going to, in that day, look at him and say, "It's your fault."
In kdo bo takrat pogledal na njega in rekel, tvoja krivda.
When they will see with clarity the incredible price He paid for each one of us.
Ko bodo jasno videli neverjetno ceno, ki jo Jezus plačal od slehenega od nas.
You see, unbelief is a wicked sin.
In veste, nevera je velik greh.
It's not about science.
Tu se ne gre o znanosti.
It's about sin.
Dejansko vprašanje tukaj je greh.
That's why an unbeliever doesn't believe in God. He doesn't believe in God because science.
In nevernik ne verjame v Boga zato, ker je pač znanstveni.
I've been showing you there's nothing scientific about this worldview, this way of thinking.
Ker nazadnje sem vam pokazal, da na desni strani, torej pri naturalističnem pogledu, ni ničesar znanstvenega.
Nič novega. Paul was writing the exact same issue in Rome 2,000 years ago.
Pavel je pisal o istih stvareh Rimljanom že pred 2000 leti.
And Paul writes that there will be a day of accountability.
In Pavel piše, da bo dan, ko bomo podali odgovor.
And every man will stand before God.
In vsak človek bo stal pred Bogom.
And that day, it's not going to be an issue, is there a God or is there not a God?
In takrat ne bo več vprašanja, Bog je ali da ni.
The issue is going to be upon us. Did we believe or did we not believe?
Takrat bo vprašanje dneva, ali smo verjeli ali ne.
Did we obey or did we not obey?
Ali smo ubogali ali ne.
Did we run to the light or did we run from the light?
Ali smo tekli k luči ali stran od luči.
Do we live our lives for God or do we live our lives for ourselves?
Ali smo živeli življenja za Boga ali zase.
Those will be the questions as we look forward to where we are going.
To bodo vprašanja, na katere bomo dali odgovor.
And as I've already mentioned, the Bible teaches very clearly of eternal reward.
In kot sem že omenil, Biblija govori o večnih nagradah.
So how about the one who does not believe in God?
Kaj pa tisti, ki ne verjamejo v Boga?
What awaits him or her?
Kaj pa njih čaka?
Nič.
Nič.
Čisto nič. Okay? That is a very, very big difference in worldviews.
In to je velika razlika svetovnih nazorov.
So, where did we come from?
Torej, odkud prihajamo?
Why are we here?
Zakaj smo tu?
Where are we going?
Kam gremo?
And now, in light of those three questions, we need to ask the final question, how then shall we live?
In v luči vseh teh treh vprašanj se moramo potem vprašati zadnje vprašanje, kako naj živimo.
As we said, one who believes in God believes that we have value. Humans have value.
Torej, tisti, ki verjamejo v Boga, verjame, da imamo vrednote, da imamo ljudje vrednote.
If you do not believe in God, then we are just simply animals.
Če pa ne verjamemo v Boga, potem smo enostavno samo živali.
I was reading an article 2 days ago in one of the big newspapers in America.
Bral sem članek 2 dni nazaj iz enega bolj popularnih časopisov v Ameriki.
This is a national newspaper in the United States 2 days ago.
Torej, to je nacionalni časopis v Ameriki izpred 2 dni.
And this was the argument. This was the article.
In članek je govoril o tem.
Monogamy, or one man living with one woman,
Monogamija, torej da en moški živi z eno žensko,
is not natural.
ni naravna.
It's unnatural.
Je nenaravna.
Let's look at the animal kingdom.
Poglejmo si Božje kraljestvo.
And you see that 90...
Živalsko
Živalsko kraljestvo.
And we see that 97% of the animal kingdom is not homogeneous. One male, one female married for life.
In če gledamo živalsko kraljestvo, vidimo, da 97% živali ne živi monogamno.
So therefore, it's unnatural for you and for us.
In torej, to je zate in zame enostavno nenaravno, da bi živel monogamno.
One man was writing, his article was writing, he's saying that monogamy is actually caused great damage to my marriage.
In pisec je dejansko napisal, da je monogamija povzročila težave.
Puts me under tremendous stress.
Mu je povzročila težave in ga izpostavila hudemu stresu.
This is absolutely consistent with his worldview.
In to je konsistentno z njegovim pogledom na svet, ker smo enostavno po njegovem mnenju samo živali.
There's no God.
Ni Boga.
There's no value.
Ni vrednot.
We are just animals.
Smo samo živali.
And I look at outside of my yard. I live on a farm. There's dogs and cats everywhere.
Živim na kmetiji in mačke in psi so vse naokrog.
Yeah. And when a maček or a dog goes into heat, all the rest of the dogs and cats go crazy.
In ko je psica, ko se goni, s vsem ostalim psom začne malo mešati.
Hello, Fifi! Woo! Se ne morem pomagati. I can't help myself. I'm just an animal. And that's what this article was teaching 2 days ago in a national magazine for the whole of America to read.
In dejansko o tem je pisal ta članek 2 dni nazaj za celotno Ameriko, v časopisu.
And so you can understand, as I read that, I understand exactly where they're coming from.
In dejansko to berem je povsem jasno, na osnovi česa piše avtor.
This author is writing and he doesn't have a biblical worldview.
Avtor, ki piše, nima bibličnega
He
pogleda.
doesn't know God.
Ne pozna Boga.
And he's been led to believe through the process of propaganda
In zato je skozi propagando začel verjeti,
that we're just simply animals.
da smo samo živali.
Right? So it makes perfect sense to him.
In zato za njega ima to dejansko smisel, kar piše.
Right? I know it seems a little silly as I'm talking about it now.
Vem, da se sliši malce čudno in neumno, ko zdaj o tem jaz govorim
I'm
tukaj.
telling you, tens of thousands of Americans were reading this saying, no, yeah, that makes sense.
Ampak zavedati se moramo, da na 10.000 Američanov je bralo ta članek in marsikdo si je po branju mislil, ja, vse to pa ima smisel.
Unbelievable.
To je neverjetno.
Another huge argument that is fighting, continues to fight in America, in our courts, and that's abortion.
In še ena stvar, ki v bistvu razdeljuje Ameriko, je splav.
In Texas, one of the more conservative states in all of America.
V Teksasu, ki je ena izmed bolj konzervativnih zveznih držav Amerike,
The court tried to pass a law that says that no abortions would be allowed after 20 weeks.
Želijo v bistvu upeljati zakon, ki bi prepovedoval splav po 20. tednu nosečnosti.
And they're fighting in the courts, big fights on all of the states.
In bojujejo se v bistvu na sodišču.
What's happening? Different worldviews.
In dejansko smo priča spopadu dveh različnih
On one side, we have millions of Americans that says children, babies in their womb or after they're born have value. They're humans.
Imamo milijone Američanov, ki pravijo, da otroci v maternici, potem ko se rodijo, imajo vrednote in so ljudje.
They should be protected by the law.
In bi jih moral zakon ščititi.
And then you got others who are saying, oh no.
Imamo druge, ki rečejo,
it's all about a woman's right to choose.
Vse temelji zgolj na pravici ženske, da se odloči.
And I do believe that a woman and a man have a right to choose whether she gets pregnant or not get pregnant.
In seveda jaz verjamem, da imata moški in ženska pravic, da se odloči, ali bo ona zanosila ali ne.
But it's a very different story when you talk about a child that is now conceived. It is 20 weeks old, 25 weeks old.
Zgodba postane povsem drugačna, ko se enkrat pogovarjamo o otroku, ki je star 20-25 tednov.
Just recently, we had a nationwide scandal in one of the abortion clinics.
Na eni izmed teh klinik za izvajanje abortusa smo imeli škandal.
And this abortion doctor
in ta doktor, ki izvaja abortuse,
was trying to murder or kill or abort late-term pregnancies. These are not children that are almost ready to be born, and he kills them.
In je v bistvu želel prekiniti nosečnost, ki je bila že zelo pozna, tik pred porodom.
And occasionally, children are born and they're still alive.
In včasih se otroci rodijo in so še vedno živi.
And what he did, he says, well, I didn't kill them inside the womb, now they're outside the womb.
Je rekel, če ga nisem bil v maternici, zdaj pa nisem maternice.
He did the same thing outside the womb that he did inside the womb just a few hours before.
Je izmed maternice naredil ista stvar, kot je počel.
Takes his scissors, his knife,
in vzel je nož,
and he basically drives it right through the skull into the brain of the little baby, kills it.
In ga je zaril skozi lobanje v možgane otroka.
That's legal in all of America, all over Europe.
In to je legalno v Ameriki.
Inside the womb.
V Ameriki in v Evropi, vse dokler se to dogaja v maternici.
10 minut pozneje, 10 minutes later, if the child comes out and it's still alive,
če pa se otrok rodi 10 minut kasneje in še živ,
and you do that,
in to narediš,
that's first degree murder.
Je pa to umor prve stopnje.
Explain to me the difference.
Razložite mi, v čem je razlika.
That's the difference.
To je razlika.
Do we believe in God and that we have value, that human life has value, that needs to be protected?
Ali verjamemo v Boga in v to, da ima človeško življenje vrednost?
Or do we believe, no, we're just animals?
Ali pa verjamemo, da smo samo živali?
Ne? Kolika razlika? Let's go a little faster here. As I said, how should we live? I believe that we should live with purpose.
In rekel sem, kako naj bi živeli, kako naj živimo. Živeti bi morali z namenom.
Not with indifference.
Ne pa, da smo indiferentni.
I believe things matter. People matter. Things matter.
Ljudje so važni, stvari so važne.
And we should live a life of purpose.
Moramo živeti življenje, ki ima namen.
We should live a life of conviction.
In moramo živeti življenje, ki je polno nekaj prepričanja.
I believe that all ethics, all morality ultimately comes from us believing in God.
Verjamem, da vsa etika in morala prihaja iz tega, da verjamemo v Boga.
Right now there's tremendous and has been tremendous struggles in Slovenia, in Europe, around the world with corruption in government.
Torej, tako v Sloveniji kot tudi po svetu smo se soočili s korupcijo v vladi.
Right? We all complain. All Slovenes complain about the corruption in our government.
Vsi Slovenci se pritožujemo nad koruptivnostjo naše vlade.
But if you believe in corruption, you have to believe in right and wrong.
Če verjamete v korupcijo, potem morate verjeti v dobro in slabo.
How can you believe in right or wrong if you don't believe in God?
Kako lahko verjamete v dobro in slabo, če ne verjamete v Boga?
If you just believe in randomness, in nothingness, in no purpose, and no meaning, then what's wrong with me taking a little money off the side? Survival of the fittest.
Torej, če verjamemo, da ni nobene višje avtoritete, da je vse brez smisla in da je zgolj posledica na ključi, kaj je potem narobe s tem, če vzamem nekaj podkupnine?
These poor farmers are having trouble living on 300 or 400 euros a month and they're having trouble eating.
Neki ljudje, ki morajo živeti s 300 do 400 evri mesečnega dohodka in dejansko trpijo lakoto.
And the politician buys himself his third house on the Adriatic Sea.
Politik na drugi strani pa se kupi svojo tretjo hišo na Atlantskem morju.
Survival of the fittest.
Pač preživeti je najmočnejše.
If I'm smarter, if I'm more capable, why not?
Če sem pametnejši in bolj sposoben, se tako ne.
Si brez Boga ne gre.
Torej, brez Boga ne gre.
Nič ne gre.
Nič ne gre.
That's number 3 is conviction.
Torej, potem smo pri številki 3, prepričanje.
If you believe in God, you have hope, you have confidence.
Če verjameš v Boga, imaš upanje in imaš samozavest.
Without God, there is no hope.
No, brez Boga pa ni upanja.
There is no certainty of anything.
Nič ni sigurnega.
And here would be my statement to everyone in the natural atheist world.
In tu bi bila moja izjava vsem, ki se nahajajo v političnem svetu.
If I'm right,
če imam jaz prav,
if Jesus is who he said he was,
in če Jezus je, kdo je rekel, da je,
if the Bible is the Word of God,
in če Biblija je Božja beseda,
and I die, I have a plan and a future eternal life.
in če umrem in imam večno življenje,
If there is no God,
če ni Boga,
and I die,
in umrem,
I lose nothing.
ne izgubim nič.
I lose absolutely nothing.
Ne izgubim ničesar.
Right? And what about atheists?
Kaj pa tisti,
Who doesn't believe in God?
ki ne verjame v
And
Boga
lives a life without purpose,
in živi življenje brez smisla,
without meaning,
brez pomena,
without conviction.
brez prepričanja.
And then he dies.
No, on umre
And he stands before a living God.
in stoji pred živim Bogom.
He loses everything.
On izgubil vse.
So na eni strani vernik ne more nič izgubiti. On this side, a believer can lose nothing if he's wrong.
Vernik nič ne izgubi, če se moti.
Če ni Boga, okay.
Če ni Boga, moramo.
Right? I still live the life of purpose. I still live the life of meaning. I still live the life of conviction.
Sem živel življenje z vrednotami in prepričanji.
But what about an atheist?
Can you stand you for the Quran?
Because he's just a Korean. What about a believer?
Kaj pa nevernik?
He loses everything.
On izgubil vse.
He can gain nothing.
Ničesar ne more
Lose
dobiti,
everything.
izgubil pa lahko vse.
That's the difference between
To je razlika
these two philosophies.
med tema dvema vrstama filozofije.
And number 5,
In številka 5,
if you believe in God, you believe in absolute truth.
če verjamemo v Boga, verjamemo v absolutno resnico.
If you do not believe in God, then there is no absolute truth.
Če ne verjamemo v Boga, potem ni absolutne resnice.
Right? How can we have courts and legal systems, and how can we determine what is right and what is wrong if there's no God?
Kako lahko imamo sploh sodišča in pravne sisteme, če pa sploh ne verjamemo, da je Bog, ki je dal, kaj je prav in kaj je narobe.
Right? If there is no God,
Če ne bi bilo Boga,
if there is no absolute,
če ne bi bilo absolutne resnice,
then who's right and who's wrong?
kdo ima potem prav, kdo ima narobe?
There can be no justice without God.
Brez Boga ne more biti pravice,
There can be no truth without God.
ne more biti resnice brez
And
Boga.
this is not a new argument. If you remember, Jesus stood before Pontius Pilate,
To ni nekaj novega. Če se spomnite, ko je Jezus stal pred Poncem Pilatom
and he said, I am the truth.
in je rekel, jaz sem resnica.
What did Pontius Pilate say? What is truth?
Kaj je Ponce Pilat rekel? Kaj je resnica?
What is truth? What is that?
Kaj je to resnica?
That was not in his world, his understanding.
Tega razumevanja ni bilo v njegovem svetu.
Jesus said basically, yes, there is truth. You're looking at it.
In v bistvu Jezus mu je kazal, je resnica, zdaj jo gledaš.
And you will one day see me again.
In nekega dne se bo spet videl.
Every person ever born will one day stand before the truth.
Vsaka oseba, ki se je kadarkoli rodila, bo nekega dne stala pred resnico.
And his name is Jesus Christ.
In njegovo ime je Jezus Kristus.
He is the way, the truth, and the
On
life.
je pot življenja in
There is
resnica.
no way to eternal life but by him.
Ni poti v večno življenje, razen po njemu.
Now, does that help us a little better understand why Paul said, I am not ashamed of the gospel.
Nam to mogoče bolj pomaga, zakaj je Pavel rekel, ne sramujem se Kristusevega evangelija.
Don't be intimidated. Don't be ashamed as a believer.
Ne bodite plašni kot verniki.
Know what you believe.
Ne sramujte se, morate vedeti, kaj verujete.
Know why you believe it.
Morate vedeti, zakaj verujete.
And know where it's found in the scriptures.
In najdite to, kje je to v Svetem pismu.
And Jesus said, you will build your life upon solid rock.
In Jezus rekel, da na ta način zgradiš svoje življenje na trdni skali.
But what about an unbeliever?
Kaj pa nevernik?
It's important to understand what they believe, what they think they believe.
Dobro je, da veš, kaj oni mislijo, da verjamejo.
And to understand that they really don't even know what they believe.
In da razumeš, da oni v bistvu ne vejo točno, kaj verujejo.
Because they have not answered these 4 questions in their life adequately.
Ker ne morejo na dovolj dober način odgovoriti na ta 4 vprašanja.
They don't know where they came from.
Ker ne vejo, odkod so prišli.
They don't know why they're here.
Ne vejo, zakaj so tu.
They don't know where they're going.
In ne vejo, kam grejo.
They don't know how to live.
In ne vejo, kako zdaj živeti.
And they don't know why.
In ne vejo, zakaj.
And they can't tell you why they believe. They can't go back to anything to tell you why they believe what they believe.
On se ne more nekam vrniti in ti pokazati, zakaj verjamem to, kar verjamem.
Now, I respect everyone's opinion.
Jaz spoštujem vsakogar mnenje.
But I am not going to be intimidated by that kind of a world.
Ampak takšne vrste svetonazorov me ne more preplašiti.
Because I believe most people, when they hear a clear presentation of the gospel,
Ker verjamem, da večina ljudi, ko slišijo čiste evangelije, čisto prezentacijo evangelija.
and most people need to hear it 6 or 7 or 8
In
times.
večina ljudi mora to slišati od 6 do 8-krat.
The Holy Spirit begins to open their hearts and their eyes.
In Sveti tu začne odpirati srce in oči.
Romans 1 comes into effect.
Potem Rimljanom 1 postane učinkovito.
You cannot possibly look at God's creation
Da
without seeing God.
potem več ne moreš sploh gledati Božjega stvarstva, da ne bi v njem videl Boga.
And once we acknowledge, recognize Him as Creator God,
In ko njega priznamo za stvarnika, za Boga,
then His plan and His Spirit can begin to work in our lives.
potem njegov načrt, njegov duh začne delovati v naših življenjih.
Does that make sense?
A ima to smisel?
Amen.
Kako vprašanje? Questions? Come God.
Imam to kakšno vprašanje, komentar?
These are simple questions,
To so enostavno vprašanje.
but they're probably the most important questions in
Ampak
life.
najbolj pomembna vprašanja v življenju.
Right? And I think every one of us needs to answer these questions.
In mislim, da vsak od nas si mora odgovoriti na ta vprašanja.
And help our friends, our relatives, our neighbors, and our associates to ask and answer these questions.
In pomagamo tudi svojim prijateljem, znancem, sosedom, sorodnikom, da dobijo odgovore na ta vprašanja.
Our job is not to try to change someone's mind.
In naša naloga ni, da spreminjamo ljudi,
Our job is simply to ask the right questions.
ampak samo naša naloga je, da vprašamo pravo vprašanje.
Right? And that the Holy Spirit do the rest.
In da Sveti Duh naredi ostalo.
Because as I said, and I'll close with this, the issue is not science.
Ker s tem bom zdaj zaključil, ne gre za znanost,
The issue is sin.
ampak gre za greh.
Jesus said, for God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son.
In Jezus je rekel, Bog je tako ljubil svet, da je dal svojega edinorojenega sina.
And the next verse is equally important.
In naslednji citat je prav tako pomemben.
He says, and this is the basis of condemnation. This is the basis of the judge saying guilty.
In tukaj je osnova, temelj, da sodnik lahko reče obsodbo, da je nekdo kriv.
Light came into the world,
Luč je prišla na svet
and men ran away from the light, rather to the light, so that at least their deeds would be exposed.
in človek je zbežal od oči, da se njegova dela ne bi razodela.
That's the condemnation.
To je obsodba.
Light has come into the world.
Da je luč prišla na svet.
God's word became flesh and dwelt among us.
Božja beseda je postala meso in se naselila med nami.
You want to know who God is?
Yes.
I've come to represent Him.
Jezus je rekel, bi radi spoznali Boga, jaz ga predstavljam.
I will not speak my own words, I will only speak His words.
Rekel je, ne govorim svojih besed, ampak samo njegove
I will
besede.
not do my deeds, I will only do His deeds.
Ne delam svojih del, ampak opravljam samo njegova dela.
When you see me, you will see the God who created you.
Ko vidite mene, vidite Boga, ki je vas ustvaril.
And those that believe in me shall never die.
In kdorkoli veruje vame, nikoli ne bo umrl.
Amen. Let's pray.
Dajmo.
Lord, we thank you that we are not ashamed of the gospel of Christ.
Gospod, hvala, da se ne sramujemo Evangelija Jezusa Kristusa.
For it is the power of God unto salvation.
Ker je v njem moč odrešenja.
We thank you, Lord, that you have given us purpose in life.
Hvala, da si nam ti dal namen v življenju.
We thank you that you've given us your word and your spirit.
Hvala, da si nam dal svojo besedo in svojega duha.
To answer these most important questions in life.
Da lahko odgovorimo na najbolj pomembno vprašanje v življenju.
And I pray, Holy Spirit, you would continue to open the hearts and the minds of all those that are here or watching by video.
In molim Sveti Duh, da odpre srce in ljudi, ki so tukaj prisotni in tudi teh, ki to gledajo na videu.
And begin by revelation to answer these questions in their own heart, in their own way.
In da jim ti daješ razodete, ko iščejo odgovore na ta vprašanja na svoj način.
So that everyone can say in his own words,
Da lahko vsak s svojimi lastnimi besedami pove,
where I came from,
od kje sem prišel,
why am I here,
zakaj sem tu,
where am I going,
kam grem
and how should I live.
in kako naj živim.
Thank you, Lord, for
Hvala ti, Gospod,
that you have saved us and called us out of darkness into your glorious light.
da si nas odrešil iz teme in postavil svojo čudovito luč.
And even in the midst of the gross darkness upon the land,
In tudi sredi močne teme v deželi
we can be shining lights in
smo
your glory.
lahko luč, ki sveti s tvojo slavo.
Testimonies of your love
Pričevanje tvoje ljubezni
and your plan in our lives.
in tvojega načrta v naših življenjih.
And we pray in Jesus' name.
To molimo v imenu Jezusa.
Amen.
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 Amen. Hvala ti, Darko. Haleluja. Rad bi odprl ta prostor, haleluja, kdorkoli, če rabiš Božje, ki ti prid naprej, bomo molili zate. Kdor bi rad kaj spil, imamo udali za ti, kdor bi se rad drugi lahko stane tukaj noter, everyone come. Tako da kakšno bolj potrebo imaš, mogoče danes si tukaj pa ne veš, kam greš, veš, če to danes rabiš, potem te vam da priječ naprej, odprej svoje srce. Če bi rad danes prejel se, lahko to narediš, če ga še nisi sprejel. Bo zakon pomolila zate, je lahko prišel tvoj življenje. Tvoj življenje sem spremenil, jaz sem bil v en let starejši datum, na 20 let, ki sem to naredil. In sem živel točno tako, kar je napisal na tej strani. Začel sem razmišljati, zakaj bi imel ženo, dva otroka, avto, psa, pa službo, zakaj ne bi kar takoj zdaj umrl. In šel na drugo stran, kaj je naj na drugi strani, sem ga tukaj